Hi, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about historical myths, and for this dimension, we're basically going to talk about the general worldview within Hinduism, how Hinduism views our world, and really what we'll understand is our cycle of life in Hinduism. So, the first concept that we're going to talk about is samsara. And samsara is basically the reality in which we live, according to Hinduism. The image behind me is actually an artistic rendering of samsara, and you can see by the shape of it that it's a wheel. And basically, samsara is conceived as a wheel, and it's a wheel of life. It is a circle or cycle of life, death, and rebirth. This is known as reincarnation. This may be something that many of you already knew about Hinduism. Basic Hindu belief, and we'll see a lot of these fundamentals will carry over into Buddhism as well. So Hinduism understands us all to live in samsara. So we are all in this cycle of life, death, and rebirth. So we live a life, we die, and then shortly afterwards we come back, we are reborn again. So all human beings are within this cycle of samsara, and animals are in it as well. So there's human beings, there's animal beings, and there's actually a couple other layers. There's the gods are a part of this, there's demon beings, there's a couple other different categories of beings that are trapped in samsara. But for us, we're going to focus on the human and animal aspect of it. So we are in this cycle. We live, we die, and we're reborn. And this doesn't happen just once within samsara. The understanding within Hinduism is that this happens countless numbers of times. We don't just live a single life, a single human or animal life. We live hundreds and thousands of these lifetimes. And our lifetime can change dramatically depending on what we'll talk about as our karma. We can be a human, we can be an animal. So we mentioned there are other categories of beings that we can be born as. So the physical aspect of our nature is temporary, right? The gender into which I'm born, the physical body into which I'm born, that's something that just lasts for this one lifetime. But at the core of all of us is something called an Atman. And in Hinduism, the most common definition of Atman is soul. So really, each of us has a soul, and that soul or Atman is eternal. So despite the sort of outer trappings of our lifetime, the human or animal or gender form, it is our soul that remains constant and eternal. Everything else about us changes lifetime after lifetime. But our Atman, as we'll see, is what our true self, our true identity is. And the outer part, right, that's just temporary. That's just something that shifts and changes as we go through these many lifetimes. So this cycle of samsara, the cycle of life, death, and rebirth, to some, this could sound great, right? This could sound like immortality. Oh, I don't have to be afraid of dying because I know that when I die, I'll just be reborn, right? I'll be reborn as another human being or animal or some other type of being. But it's important to know in Hinduism that this is not thought of as a good thing. This is not thought of as a blessing or immortality. It's actually thought of as a curse. We are stuck in samsara. We are trapped in samsara. And as we see when we'll talk about myths of endings, the goal is actually liberation. The goal is to get off of this wheel, to get out of this cycle of life, death, rebirth, again and again and again and again. The goal is to get to a lifetime when I die and I don't have to come back. I don't have to live another lifetime, another existence within samsara. I want to be liberated, to be free from this wheel. And the reason why samsara is thought of as the curse, sort of the bad part of it, and the liberation is the goal, is because the human life is conceived in quite a different way in Hinduism. The human life, and really any type of life, any of these beings that we talked about, not just humans but animals, even especially animals, is conceived of as containing more suffering than joy. That on the whole, every single lifetime lived in samsara is marked by suffering. The overall nature of existence in samsara is suffering. And that might sound very pessimistic. That might sound sort of doom and gloom, um, but but there's a lot to that understanding of a human life. There's a lot of layers of that suffering, and as we'll see, actually, Hinduism starts with this conception, and Buddhism sort of takes this even to more of an extreme. And the reason that the human life is thought of as containing overall more suffering and joy has to do with, as I mentioned, sort of these many different layers or understandings of suffering. And that word in English can seem very harsh, but it has to do with simply what it means to live a human life, what it means to live life, to be alive in samsara. Because on the one hand, yes, they're talking about actual suffering, which is that, as all of us know, you go through life and bad things are going to happen, right? Tragic things happen, really unfortunate, painful events happen in our lifetime. At this point, most of you have already had, have had harder times in your life, right? You've had tragedies, you've had struggles that you've had to go through, and you know that those things cause suffering. And you know that you are guaranteed to have more of those in your life, right? That's just part of being human. That's just part of living in this world, is that sometimes really painful, really unfortunate events are going to happen in our lives, and they're going to cause suffering. That's something that no one can avoid, right? It just comes with the territory of being alive. So there is that level of suffering. So there's sort of an acceptance and understanding in Hinduism, right, that life isn't just all joy, that no matter what, you're always going to have these painful, these tough episodes in your life. But there's another level to that suffering that's sort of more basic to every lifetime within samsara, which is just the fact that every single one of us is going to grow old, we're going to get sick, and we're going to die, right? These are three things that are, the getting sick one maybe not 100% guaranteed, but everything else is pretty much guaranteed, right? We are all going to die. That is something that is a guaranteed outcome for all of us, right? None of us gets out of here alive, right? None of us survives this world. Eventually, this world beats us, right? And we will all die. And we just really don't know when, right? We know that we will die, but we don't know when. We sort of live with that knowledge. We learn how to accept that knowledge and go on in our daily lives. But all of us know, of course, in the back of our minds that, yes, our days are numbered, and we don't know when the end of our lives will be. We don't know if we have 1 more year or 70 more years. So life means suffering, for one, because of the fact that we will die, and we have to live with that knowledge of our own death, right? We have to come to understand and accept that we will die. And every day we know that we're going to die. We know that, that our time here is limited. And then also, if we are lucky enough to live a long time, it doesn't mean that we stay young and strong and mentally vital. It means that we're going to age. And you, as my students, you may be on various points in this path, but all of us are going to grow old, and there's a lot of really not fun things that come along with aging, right? Our bodies do not stay the same. Our bodies start to deteriorate, to get physically weaker, and that also happens to our minds, right? That also happens to our mental ability. If you live with an elderly relative, or you've been close to an elderly relative as they've gone through this process, you know that it's not a fun process to go through, right? It's probably difficult to watch a loved one, to watch this happen to a loved one. And it's definitely not easy for them to go through it as well, right? Many of you probably had this experience already of watching someone that you care about get very old and go through this aging process. Watch them as they lose their physical ability. They can no longer do the same things that they used to be able to do. And their minds can't do the same things that they used to do, right? They can't remember the same things. They can't, they can't enjoy the same mental activities that they used to. And again, if we're lucky enough to live to old age, that's what awaits us all, right? And then on top of that, many of us will get sick as well, right? Many of us will go through illness. We will go through a long, protracted illness. So all of these things await us, right? We're going to get old. We may very well get sick at some point in our lives, and we're all going to die. that's a hard thing to face, right? Those are not pretty images to think of, to know that that is going to happen to us. What brings another level to that suffering is that it's not just going to happen to us, right? It's going to happen to every single person in our lives. It's going to happen to every single person we love. So not only are we going to go through this unfortunate process, we are going to watch our parents, our grandparents, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our children, our friends. We're going to watch them go through this process as well, right? So now you can maybe start to see why in Hinduism and really Eastern traditions in general see overall a human life is marked by more suffering than joy. Because no matter the moments of joy, right, the good things that happen in our lives, and of course they do, right? We have moments of happiness and we fall in love and having children and enjoying life, and those are all wonderful things, and those do happen. But ultimately, this unfortunate fate awaits us all, right? We are going to go through times of suffering, and we're all going to go through this aging process. We're all going to die, and we're going to watch everyone we love go through this process as well. So this is why samsara is a curse, right? It's not a blessing, because not only do I have to go through this process once, I have to go through it thousands and thousands of times again and again and again, right? I don't just have to age, grow old, and die once. I have to do it thousands of times. I don't just have to watch my loved ones get old, get sick, and die. I have to watch them do that over and over and over again. So samsara, this wheel, this cycle of life, death, and rebirth, it's not the goal. It's the reality in which we live. But we want to get out. We want to get off of this wheel. We want to no longer be stuck or trapped in samsara, right? We go through these multiple lifetimes, and our Atman is what goes with us. Remember, our Atman is our personal soul. It's the core of our being. It's our true identity. And as we'll see, a lot of the path of Hinduism is also coming to understand and experience our Atman, and to sort of realize the true nature, right? That is our true identity. Not the physical outside, not this human life or this animal life, but really the core of our being, our Atman, which is what goes through this cycle with us lifetime after lifetime. So we're stuck in this cycle, right? We're stuck in this cycle of suffering, and we want to get out. So the next couple of concepts that we're going to talk about is what keeps us here. So the first thing, actually, it says Maya and then desire, but first of all, we're going to talk about desire. So what keeps us in this cycle, right? What keeps us trapped in this cycle of suffering is our desire. So as we'll see in Hinduism, our main problem in Hinduism, right, and this is what Prothero talks about in his book, the main problem with human beings is desire. We have to learn throughout these lifetimes that we go through, we have to learn what we desire and to redirect our desire towards something else, towards something greater. So all human beings and everything that's trapped in samsara, we desire, right? We are these craving, desiring beings. We desire love. We desire stability. We desire fulfillment. We desire money, wealth, success, happiness, all of these things. We desire so much that we even just desire existence, right? We desire when we go to bed at night, we want to wake up in the morning, right? We want to continue living in this world because this world seems real to us. It seems true to us. So we desire all of these things within the world. So even though, as I said, samsara is what we want to get out of, in Hinduism it's understood that it takes a long time for someone to truly understand that and to stop desiring the things of this world. Right? So even if I were to say, oh, this world, it's a curse, right? It's full of suffering. And you said, yeah, that this life is full of suffering. It's still a long period of time. It's a great spiritual path to go through in Hinduism to truly understanding that and to stopping your desire for the things of this world, right? Because we are desiring beings. We are desiring creatures. And what causes that desire for us is Maya, is the other term here. And Maya is really, it can be translated in a couple different ways, but we're going to use the term either illusion or ignorance. Okay, so Maya is illusion or ignorance. And really, that is what convinces us or confuses us into thinking that this world is the true reality, right? That samsara is the true reality. As long as we desire things of this world, we are stuck in this world. That is what sort of binds us to this world, right? If I want love, I want happiness, I want wealth, I want success, all of these things of the world that I want, that desire for those things is what is keeping me here. It's what's keeping me within samsara, trapped on this wheel. And it's going to cause me to continue to come back again and again, living and living and living. So the goal in Hinduism is to overcome your Maya, is to overcome your illusion. And it's gradually to come to the understanding that samsara is a curse, that this is not the true world, that there is greater existence outside of it, and that that's what we should reorient our desire towards. So one thing to keep in mind as we go through these religious traditions, a lot of times you can say, in a sentence or two, different beliefs or outlooks or worldviews of different religious traditions. But it's important to understand that saying them, we can say them in a sentence or two, but coming to a true understanding of them and then living out that belief is something that within all of these traditions is seen as taking a long time, right? That the traditions are built upon a path to achieving that understanding and that experience. So I can say, right, to say, oh, samsara is a curse. We want to redirect our desire towards liberation from samsara, and that's how you achieve it. But in Hinduism, of course, it's understood that these goals don't just take one lifetime, they take thousands upon thousands of lifetimes, right? To come to truly believe this to be true, to understand it to be true, and then to actually live that experience, right? To live that desire. So Maya is our illusion that this world is real and that this world is all there is. So as long as that reigns sort of supreme in our view, we will continue to want the things of this world. That will force us to cling to this world, or that is what will bind us to this world, and that will cause us to keep living again and again and again, right? Life, death, rebirth, life, death, rebirth. So the goal is to overcome that, right? And to see the world for what it truly is. And really, and we'll continue touching on this theme again and again, to see the world for what it truly is, right? To see the world without the illusion of Maya, without the ignorance of Maya, is to see the world for its true nature, which we remember from last time is actually Brahman, right? Brahman is the source of everything, and in another more true sense, Brahman is everything, right? So the entire universe is God. Everything that we see is God. So the world of difference, of multiplicity, of diversity, that's actually Maya, right? We experience the world as being a place of difference. But in Hinduism, overcoming that is to understand the world and see the world for what it really is, which is all God. Everything that I see is God, right? Every living being, every organism, every aspect of this universe is divine. And therefore, it's all the same, right? So we come back to that theme again of the unity and the diversity, right? Hinduism is able to affirm both. The diversity that we see in this world is there, but if we learn to see it for what it truly is, we'll understand that there's an underlying unity to everything that exists in the universe. And that unity is Brahman. That unity is God, right? Everything that I see is God. So I have to strive to see the world for its true nature, which is one and which is God itself, which is divine. Okay, so again, we'll come back to these themes again and again. So we're stuck in samsara. We do want to get out, but as long as we desire the things of this world, we will continue in this cycle, right? We'll continue in this wheel. So we want to overcome that. And when we talk about myths of endings, we'll get more into what that liberation is and how to achieve that liberation. So the last concept that we're going to talk about here is karma. So understanding this wheel of samsara. So I'm just down, my feet are falling asleep. Understanding this wheel of samsara, it's important to also understand karma. And karma is probably a concept that most of you have heard of before. It's a term that's sort of, come into our modern Western vocabulary. But it is important to know sort of how Hindus specifically view karma and how this mechanism works. So, karma is a Sanskrit term, and it means work. So, everything that we do in samsara, everything that we do in our lifetime, achieves karma. So, karma, and we can have good karma or bad karma, right? If we do good in this world, we'll achieve good karma. If we do bad in this world, we'll achieve bad karma. And when we get to the dimension of ethics, we'll learn a lot more about, how that is understood, right? What is a good action and what is a bad action? How do I earn good karma, and how do I avoid bad karma? So basically, as we go through life, we are creating this karma. We are achieving karma, and that karma attaches to our Atman, right? Our soul, which is the core of our being, our true identity, our true self that goes with us lifetime after lifetime. So basically, throughout the entirety of our lives, we are accumulating this karma. The difference between a lot of times how people use it in their sort of everyday speech is we say, oh, I did something good, and then, something good happened back to me. Oh, that's karma, right? That's good karma. In Eastern traditions, karma works a little bit differently in that you don't necessarily see the effects of karma until your next lifetime. So everything that you do in your life is achieving karma, right? That good karma and bad karma. Then when you die, the balance of karma that is attached to your Atman that you have earned over the course of your lifetime is going to determine the circumstances of your next birth, right, of your next lifetime. So this is part of that wheel, that cycle of life, death, and rebirth. So ultimately, if you do good in life, if you have more good karma than bad, you will have a good lifetime, right? You'll have a good next lifetime. So there is an understanding of a hierarchy. There are better lifetimes and worse lifetimes. So important to understand that, of course, a human lifetime is considered better than an animal lifetime. And there's a couple different reasons why a human lifetime is really, and in Hinduism, human lifetime is really the best lifetime. That's something that if you're born as a human being, it's understood that you are lucky and you should make the best use out of a human lifetime. Because an animal lifetime, it's not necessarily terrible, but there are many different reasons why it's just not as good. And it's important to know that the best lifetime is conceived of as the one in which you can make the most progress on your path to liberation. So an animal lifetime is just not as conducive to that because, one, your lifetime is much shorter, right? So you don't have a lot of time to achieve good karma. The second is that you don't necessarily have the mental capacity to achieve that much good karma because animals are ruled by instinct. So their drives, their decision making is usually just governed by selfish impulses, right? By their instinct, self-preservation. So it's really hard for an animal to earn good karma. So an animal lifetime is not as good as a human lifetime. And of course, even within the animal world, there are better lifetimes than others, right? A pretty low lifetime would be like a cockroach or a fly or something like that, right? Something that lives really only a very brief period of time and is pretty much, completely dominated by their instincts. There are, other animals that are understood to have more capacity for compassion, and that's good because they can earn better karma. So they can work their way back up to a human lifetime. So it's just harder for animals to accumulate enough good karma. So you'd have to live like a lot of animal lifetimes before you could achieve a human lifetime again. So a human lifetime is good, and of course, there are better human lifetimes than others. We will talk about the caste system in Hinduism, which is something that many of you may be familiar with. So being born into a higher caste is considered a better lifetime. But really also some of the best lifetimes in Hinduism would be a lifetime in which you have the time and the temperament to really focus on your spirituality, right? That it's gonna be a lifetime that you can make progress on this path. So if you are born extremely poor, that's not a great lifetime, really, because your entire life is going to be sort of overwhelmed by making sure you have enough food to eat and you have a roof over your head and things like that. So other things are getting in the way. In the same measure, a lifetime in which you're incredibly wealthy is also not the best lifetime, because again, you're probably going to be consumed by thoughts and desires of wealth and money and things like that. So really just having enough money would be considered a great lifetime, and having the temperament to make progress on your path. Right? To have a temperament that is inclined towards spirituality, that is inclined towards making spiritual progress. Those would be the factors that would go into making a good lifetime. And all of that comes from your karma. So the understanding is the circumstances in your life right now, those are the results of your accumulated karma from your previous lifetime. You don't necessarily carry with you like memories, or certain physical attributes of a previous lifetime, but your accumulated karma from that lifetime creates the life that you have now, right? Creates the circumstances that you have now. And because a human lifetime is considered a very good lifetime, right? You guys are all in a very excellent lifetime right now. So the emphasis in Hinduism is that being born a human, you should make the most of that lifetime, right? You should do the most good and try to make the most progress on your path, because you don't know what your next lifetime is going to be. So you should use this opportunity wisely. Okay, so in our next dimension, we're going to talk about that liberation. How do we get out of samsara, and what is that other type of existence like? Okay,